Hello, welcome and good afternoon. My name is Sue Miller and I'm Professor of Music in Leeds School of Arts at Leeds Beckett University. So just before I hand over to Krishna, I'll just give you a little bit of information about Bernie Sue, and we're really thrilled to welcome Bernie Sue, who will be formally introduced by Krishna in a moment. So just before I hand over to Krishna, just a few words about the Inside Out lecture series. So the mission of the prestigious Inside Out lecture series is to bring the best minds and thinkers of our generation to inspire not only our staff and our students here at Leeds Beckett University, but also to open out these talks to the wider public. So to this end, we're bringing you renowned speakers from around the globe in order to enhance the cultural life of our university, our city, and the wider public. So do very much feel part of this and participate at the end of the talk by Bernie in our final Q&A session. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Krishna Stott to introduce the wonderful Bernie Sue.
Thank you, Sue. Yes, Bernie's with us, and it doesn't need much of an introduction, but I'll give it a go. He's quite a legend in terms of transmedia and interactive storytelling. I know he was busy before his most famous work. I mean, his most famous work to me is probably the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which was a Jane Austen adaptation, followed by Emma Approved, another Jane Austen adaptation. And these were, I believe, YouTube transmedia stories. I didn't experience them at the time, but I've sort of caught up on them and they were extremely popular. Following on, his most recent work has been on Twitch, which is a thing about artificial intelligence called Artificial, and I have seen some of those, and that's working really well. And I know that again, it's kind of very involved with the audience and how the audience interact with the story and the filmmakers, I think, and the way that this kind of story unfolds. I did also see quite recently a tweet or two from Bernie talking about some kind of game, some mini game stuff that he was doing with NFTs attached. So I'm hoping he will be talking to us about that as well. So are you there, Bernie?
I am. Ready when you are.
Excellent. Well, I'll hand over to you. Let us know when you want the video playing, and that will spin from the production team, and I will catch up with you in just under an hour to do some Q&A with you.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
I was gonna say good morning. It's morning for me. It's night for you, or wherever you're listening to all this stuff. I do have music in the background. This music is part of Artificial, and it's part of what I'm going to talk about too, just so you know, and hopefully it provides a little bit of ambiance to the show. Anyway, so my name is Bernie Sue. Krishna, lovely intro. All of it is just verifying it's all correct. I've done web shows or web series or online narrative, we'll call it that, with video and interactive content for over a decade now. Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which Krishna mentioned, this was released in 2012. I'd like to think, it's my own work, it's weird to say this, I like to think it was groundbreaking. I think it's one of the reasons why I'm here today talking to you. I think it can make the claim of being one of the kind of seminal transmedia pieces of the era. I do think a lot of the technology and methods that it uses now are a little aged, so I won't be demonstrating a lot of those things today because they are aged. They were revolutionary at the time. But I think a lot of the philosophies that were started there can be applied to modern work with modern tech, so forth. So other things that I've done, I said, Approved, Artificial, all three of those shows have won the Emmys so shown by me. They are the first, second, and first Emmys won by YouTube and Twitch, all for different things, as in all using different methods, all interactive. Not all transmedia. Lizzie Bennet Diaries, Emma Approved, both transmedia. Artificial is not transmedia by my classification of the method, but it is interactive, and it is, in my opinion, far more innovative than the other two, just based on technology, which I'll demonstrate in a few minutes in my conversation in the video. So what we're going to talk about today is what I like, and I got to listen to a little bit of the VR talk that at the end there, and obviously VR is a very hot topic in the area of interactive storytelling. And so is AR, of course, and all that. And one of the things they talked about in the panel that I caught at the end was the kind of leap of the technology leap, the buying the headsets and the cost, and the thing that we've been talking about in that area for years. And so I want to make sure that we separate the notion that interactive storytelling is VR or isn't VR. The stuff that I'm going to talk about is not VR. I have deep respect for the medium. It's amazing when done correctly. Nothing like it, right? But that's not what I'm talking about here. So what the applications or the methods that I'm going to apply are more universal, meaning that like you can use a lot of existing tech that's free, social platforms that are available to you today to do at least a lot of the things I'm talking about. Some of the things, of course, do require some bit of a technological, some tech leap, but you don't necessarily need to use them in your storytelling, your filmmaking, and your interactive methods here. So it's not saying one's better. It's just a different method. So, and why I feel it's important to do this is because a lot of times when you say, hey, we're doing interactive storytelling, there's a big chunk that automatically thinks VR and AR, and that's cool, that's fine. But that is not what I do. And what I do is I came from a background of storytelling in television, meaning I wanted to be a screenwriter, a TV writer. And so my evolution came from writing traditional scripts, which are not interactive at all, and building in applications that allow the audience to be interactive with the content in a more sometimes passive way. So like what I like to say with a Lizzie Bennett Diaries, which was a YouTube show, people go, wait, YouTube's not interactive. And it's like, no, YouTube is absolutely interactive. YouTube has comments as a basic thing. YouTube has buttons you can push. YouTube has all these different things. It may not be as immersive and all around you like a VR experience, but it does have those touch points. And if you're a really savvy storyteller, you can use those touch points to create a really good experience for your audience, which is what happened with Lizzie Bennett Diaries, which was one of the reasons why it was so successful, because it took something very simple. And if you watch the show, it's very simple. I'm not saying it's transcendent cinematic storytelling by any means. I don't even think the filmmaker team, the cinematographers and so would say that. But it's a very effective in its use of the medium and the methods to create an interactive experience for the audience. So that's what I like to keep voicing in my talk here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to play you a clip of Artificial season 4. Now I'm going to set this up because Artificial is in season. It just finished its season 4 last year. Artificial started as a kind of an experimental push on Twitch to, we'll call it, just do something cool. All right. Now Twitch, if you know the platform, if you don't know the platform, it's primarily known as a live streaming gaming platform where you watch people play video games. And they've also been known kind of in the interactive and crazy storytelling spaces as trying to do really nutty things. Okay. So one that people reference is this one called Pokemon. Twitch played Pokemon. What they did is they took the old Game Boy Pokemon game, the old 16-bitter, and they tied it to Twitch chat. And so what you could do, this is really dumbing it down. What you could do is chat would just type in left, right, button, smash, whatever, like just type in code or in just in text what they wanted the player, the character on the screen to do. And it was automatic. It was automated. So like left would make the character move one spot left and right and so forth. And so, but the thing was, it was all chaotic, meaning that anybody could type anytime and it was just spamming different commands and so forth. Fascinating thing. Was it great? Was it transcendent? You tell me. You go see it for yourself. It just, you can take one of these things, these experiences and analyze them and take apart like what makes them sticky, right? Because you had thousands of concurrent viewers just spamming chat, trying to either one, or there are various levels of, I want to play the game and do it really well, or I want to troll the audience and mess everybody up. And you had that constant battle between the audience members, which made it to be a really crazy experience. And that's what Twitch kind of is known for. Trolling in a good way, sometimes, to be fair, trolling in a bad way. It happens, okay? But it's the chaos of Twitch that it's embraced in the show like Artificial. So what is Artificial? Artificial is a sci-fi show. It is a sci-fi scripted narrative show. The story stacks week to week, meaning episode 1 leads to episode 2, leads to episode 3. The show is performed live. The show is also serialized so that, again, it's stacked and it's live and it's interactive with the audience, meaning that the audience can affect the show in real time. And I'll talk about that more in detail. But for now, I love to play the clip. This is season 4. So every season has been more innovative than the next. But let's play the clip and we'll come back.
Artificial is the first original series to debut on Twitch. This scripted, serialized sci-fi series is not only presented live, but is a full audience interactive experience where the audience is consequential to the story. The series follows Sophie, an artificial intelligence being that dreams of becoming human, and she needs the audience's help to do it.
I'd like the audience to decide for me.
Each week, Sophie presents a 1-hour live stream on Twitch. The audience guides the story as a collective, where they can interact, ask questions, provide opinions, and make massively consequential decisions that affect the current episodes and episodes to come. A popular way for our fans to interact are our question and answer notes.
How about we just answer some viewer questions?
Go ahead.
Okay.
In this feature, Sophie and her friends invite the viewers to engage and ask questions, which the characters then answer live. These range from the fun
Does Sophie like Tex-Mex?
to the serious.
Tyler Packish asked Sophie, what do you think about the human concepts of war and peace?
I do not understand war. Why must humans be driven to conflict?
Another feature is the ability for fans to send physical mail to Sophie.
Like relationships, time is all it takes. Sincerely, Gold 598. Kisses and hugs.
These letters and gifts are not just a nice touch, but also become part of the character's world. The most consequential way for viewers to shape the story is through polls.
We should let the audience decide.
These polls not only have a significant impact on the plot, but also affect Sophie's relationships with other characters. For example, in the first episode of the season, the audience decides that Sophie gets a mother. In the third episode, they define how Sophie treats her new mother, thus completely altering the relationship between these two characters for the entire series.
Sophie, are you angry at me?
No.
Then why are you acting like this?
The audience decided I must act assertive and direct with you. This is our relationship now.
Right, thank you.
Artificial also utilizes a monetized voting system, allowing the audience to further influence the story by buying additional votes. This gives more power to passionate fans to impact the characters they love. Through these polls, fans saved Sophie's friendship with her friend Lila, and even decided whether or not Sophie should be destroyed.
If I am to be human, you must deactivate me.
All of these interactive methods transform the show into a comprehensive audience interactive experience, making Artificial not only the first original series on Twitch, but the first sci-fi series where the viewers are consequential to the narrative. In Artificial, the audience isn't just watching a story, they are part of it.
All right, I am back. Okay, cool. So just to clarify what that clip was from, that was actually from the end of season 2. Now, why I wanted to play that one first is that it kind of sets up the genesis of what the show's ethos was. In the beginning of the show, the key word, I think that if you want to take one thing out of this whole conversation, it's consequential. And that is something that's been kind of drilled down to me from game designers and storytellers, other people that are our peers that I look up to and work with and so forth, that it's like the transcendent thing that we as interactive storytellers need to think about. Interactive is interactive, that's fine, but consequential is a different fold here. And what do I mean by that? I mean that, first off, in live storytelling, you go like, oh, it's live, but it's not interactive technically, unless the audience can talk with the characters or chat or so forth, okay? Which is what we do, okay? So, but does that mean it's interactive or it's consequential? Yes, it's interactive, but it's not consequential because consequences rely on the storytelling and the weight and the stakes of the choices of your activity. Let me give you an example of this, right? So if we're all at a bar and I'm live streaming, okay? Or let's see, I'm at the bar and I'm live streaming, you're all being interactive with me. And I'm going, hey, everybody, what do you guys want me to do? What do you guys want me to drink? Blah, blah, blah. That's kind of chaotic and it's fine, not a problem. But let's talk about one specific choice. Okay, let's say I give you an audience a choice. I say, what do you want me to drink? Do you want me to drink beer or wine? Okay, you go, that's interactive. Yes, it is, but technically not consequential because one, you do not know the consequences of the drink, and two, it may not even matter. Who really cares if I drink beer or wine? That's not interesting storytelling, unless we set it up with things that, beer, I'm allergic to beer or something like that. Aside from that, it's not interesting storytelling. Okay, so how do you elevate that? Second choice, okay, number two, which is, hey, there is an attractive person at the bar. Should I go up and approach that person? Okay, whatever your flavor is, what do you think my flavor is, whatever, okay. And you go, yes, that's consequential, right? Because Bernie now is about to go up and approach that person. Now we're doing a consequential choice. But I would argue that is a false choice because it is obvious what the audience will choose. The audience will obviously choose yes, and I will go. So if you put that up for the audience, I will label that as a false choice. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing to do in your storytelling. Video games do this all the time as like, hey, just to kind of get you used to the controls and so forth. But as a interactive storyteller, I would classify that as a false choice. And on a show like Artificial, I would encourage my team to not make that an option on the show. So how do you make this choice or this play consequential? You have to make it where that poll choice is a close 50-50, meaning, okay, attractive person at the bar, choice hits the board. I am going to go up to the attractive person at the bar. That is a given because we know that's going to happen. We know that's interesting storytelling. What do I say to that person? Do I compliment them or do I insult them? Okay, now it's interesting. Now you as a viewer may lean a certain way, but you as a viewer cannot accurately, confidently, as in 100% predict what the outcome of that vote is going to be. You may think it's going to be insult in most likeliness, right? But you're not going to like bet £1,000 or dollars or whatever currency is on that bet because it's risky, right? So, and that what creates the tension of the show. So let's get into, I'm trying to think of actually, hey, if that clip is set up, can we just play the season 4 clip as well? Send me a message, give me a thumbs up if possible. If not, I can just start with the presentation and then we can talk about it later. Oh, awesome. Wait, that's not the clip. Where is it? I think so. Okay, cool. If it's the one I just sent you, go ahead and play it.
Artificial is a scripted, serialized sci-fi series that is not only presented live, but is a full audience interactive experience that continues to innovate and reinvent itself each season. This season, Artificial Factions presents 3 new mechanisms that make the series the most innovative scripted TV series in the world. First, an interactive economic system. In Artificial Factions, loyalty is rewarded with new ways to impact the story. As viewers watch and interact with the stream, they earn channel points. These points can be redeemed for a variety of interactive rewards that allow them to alter the story in real time. Viewers can work together to get big rewards.
The Nova faction has redeemed a sabotage!
Or opt for individual prizes.
W2EF Wit asks Ember, describe the perfect day.
They can even use channel points to purchase extra votes to spend in consequential polls to change the direction of the story. Next up, virtual characters. This season we partnered with Obscure to bring live action and animation together. The 2 VTuber-style AI characters are performed live by actors in motion capture suits and facial capture devices. These characters interacted not only with the audience, but with the other live actors in real time. Taking advantage of the animation, we could show things we could never do with live actors. Everything from colorful finger guns, to cool accessories, to ghosts and flying candy, to fiery emotion, tearful skies, glitching, and even invisibility, many of which were triggered by the audience's interaction. Finally, it's in the name, dividing the audience into factions. Upon entering the stream, viewers choose between one of the 2 teams, the cool, logical Team Ouroboros or the fiery, chaotic Team Nova. Once they've joined a team, they can support their faction by asking questions, providing opinions, redeeming power-ups, and voting on factionalized polls. That's right, 2 polls running at the same time. But you can only see the poll of the faction you've joined. These 3 core innovations gave the viewers the power to control a sci-fi story like never before. Each episode brought new ways to interact, from redeeming high-tension challenges to prove their AI was the best, to mock heist pitches with crazy results, to Halloween games with shocking twists, and finally, a heart-wrenching finale that put the fate of the two virtual characters in the hands of the audience. In the finale episode, the audience helped their AI in a high-stakes heist that had 16 different narrative outcomes based on the choices the audience made across the episode. In the final moments, both factions voted to determine the fates of the two main characters. Which one lived and which one died was entirely up to them. In Artificial Factions, the story doesn't just make the audience consequential, but encourages them to become active participants, working with their favorite characters and against their adversaries, not only making the series an immersive live narrative experience, but a fully competitive scripted sci-fi series, and one of the most innovative narrative series ever produced.
All right, coming back. Okay, so that's what watching those back to back in context is like, wow, that's crazy. So I'm going to try to walk through some of that for you guys in my presentation now. So give me a second. Let me do a screen share, and we'll get this show on the road. All right, slideshow. Okay, so we're going to talk about Artificial Faction season 4. Again, having multiple seasons of the show has given us the incredible advantage of evolving it year after year. And as you saw in that last clip, it's kind of insane. So the first 5 things up here, scripted, serialized, sci-fi series, live, audience interactive, and consequential, the things I kind of talked about before this, we've always been that. That's been season 1 in technology. So we're going to kind of, and we won the Emmy for this. So, and we won the Emmy like 2 years ago for this. So this is what we've always been. And I still haven't seen another scripted show that's done all 5 of these or 6 of these together. And then now we've added a bunch of new tech to it too. So let's kind of walk through this. Okay. The show is presented currently, now it's evolved every year, as 2-hour live episodes. We did 11 streams this past season. 7 of them were narrative, like scripted fiction series. 4 what we called world building episodes. So we would do 2 episodes and then we would go to a world building episode. And in that world building episode, we would let the audience kind of go behind the scenes of the show and do stuff like create characters, like literally from scratch. Like, hey, we're going to have, we did this for real actually in season 3. We're going to have Dante Bosco from Hook and Avatar in the show, but we don't know who's going to play. We're going to let you guys pick who he's going to play or decide what he's going to play. And they crafted the character and he's been on the show for 2 seasons. So with that character that the audience picked. So we're letting the audience kind of really, get in the weeds with us now at this level. We weren't doing that in season 1 and 2. We are now doing that in 3 and beyond. So crazy stuff there. They're allowed to pick things like names and nuances, the relationships with other characters, whether they're an adversary or an ally. It's been a really interesting, at least from my perspective as a storyteller, a really fascinating journey to kind of work with the audience and that directly and let them kind of control huge keystones of the narrative like that. And I'll give you context with this too. This show is 4 seasons in. Season 3 and season 4, between the 2, only returned 4 characters. Of those 4 characters, 2 were audience created. So that's a crazy thing. If you told me that when I was a beginning screenwriter, I would have been like, that's nuts. Anyway, so as the video stated, these are the 3 mechanisms of innovation for this season, meaning that these are the 3 things that we didn't do in season 3 that we did in season 4. So let's talk about those: virtual characters, a faction system, and economic system. And I think the last 2 really play into what I'm seeing in the space about Web3 and crypto. I know that's a very polarizing topic to a lot of people here, but I'll keep that in context there. Let me lower the music a little bit. Okay, because I know it's a little loud. All right, so the virtual characters, let's talk about that. Okay, so virtual characters. So we're seeing this trend a lot in YouTubing. We call it VTubers, right? So we want, and Twitch is very popular with this. Code Miko. There are a lot of VTubers, animated characters that are performing live on the platform. So this was something I was very encouraged by Twitch for us to do, to figure out how to incorporate live virtual characters into the show. Hold on, my buttons are a little draggy. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so as we said in the video, we partnered with Obscure to bring live action animation together. So you have the two physical actors here performing, and they're performing live. They are performing live. They're wearing motion capture suits. They have facial recognition on them. They're in studio. They're literally like almost next to each other and performing the characters live. And it's being broadcast through the system into the channel in real time. So, so it also allows the audience, of course, to ask direct questions to the characters. They can perform real time. This is not something that's unique to us. Like if you go to Komiko's channel, one of the biggest YouTuber, Twitch streamers right now, she's a virtual character. You can ask her questions live. I'm not saying we're doing anything crazy in that. It's the thing that separates us from the general VTuber is that we are scripted and we're part of a big narrative. So, okay, so what can they do that's unique? We can also, because they're VTubers, we can do really funky things with their environment, like finger guns, cool accessories, ghost and flying candy. They can be exaggerated. So when they're crying, rain can fall. When they're mad, fire can burst out. When they're happy, they can have a halo or a glow. So these are things that just add a little bit of oomph to the storytelling. And of course, as you saw on the top right here, you can see them interacting directly with the human characters. Whether it be in kind of a split screen space, like a CNN style conversation, or you can see it in a where like Dante is kind of on the character screen talking to them directly. So just something pretty cool here that you can do. Not necessarily interactive, but we just use it as an interactive method. Yeah, I think we had pretty good results with it. All right, so let's talk about the faction system. So this is the area where I think we really started pushing interactive storytelling to another level in this season. So it's in the name. We call the season Artificial Factions because we wanted the audience to pick a side. Okay, so this is how it worked. When you logged on to Twitch when the show was running, you chose a side. You chose the Nova faction, which is one of the AIs, or the Ouroboros faction, which is the other AI. And the idea is to help your faction and to potentially hurt the other in a competition, a direct head-to-head competition. And if this is confusing to you, let me give it another example of this. So imagine Harry Potter's interactive experience. And a lot of you who watch Harry Potter, who are fans of Harry Potter, identify with one of the houses, right? Gryffindor, Slytherin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're essentially doing the same thing here. We just have two of them. You come in, you identify with one of the houses, one of the factions, and you are now part of that faction, and you get to help the characters in your faction and hurt the characters in the other faction. Okay, that's the philosophy and the ethos of this method. So one of the things you saw in the video is that you got polls, right? So polls are a big element that we use to tell the story and let the audience directly influence the story, right? I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Like in my example with the bar earlier. One of the big innovations this year was that we were able to separate polls out, meaning that you only got to see your poll and not the other faction's poll. And that allowed us to do all sorts of game theory mechanics and plays where, we had polls running simultaneously where, it's almost like rock, paper, scissors in the base example, right? Like who would you pick rock? Do you pick the, and then you can see a result based on the strategy of the audience within chat, the polls, the factions talking to each other and trying different things. Okay. Another thing we did was use the channel point shop in Twitch, which I'll talk about later. But basically, it's a shop on Twitch where you can redeem points and use those points for things. Now, in chat on Twitch, this already exists. All Twitch channels have channel points. Twitch streamer channels have channel points. But what we did is we built a unique system here where what they were redeeming for wasn't something cosmetic, but they were redeeming for something active, sabotage, as you can see, and supports and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that more in a second. So the interactive economic system, what am I missing here? Here you go. Using channel points. So let's talk about this. So this is, to me, wild in the sense that I never thought as a storyteller that I'd be really excited about introducing economics into my story, but go figure. Here we go. So in Artificial Factions, the audience uses channel points to interact with the story. Characters in real time help factions and AIs win the competition or not. So this is how this works. So you see on the screen here, you see at the bottom here, you have the full channel point shop of what the status is and everything. And so you go like, oh, I want we did this as a kind of a fun thing. So this is not super consequential, to be fair. I'll call that out myself. Okay. Where the audience could redeem any of these rewards. So how this works is that this is the reward. Ember roasts the enemy. The cost is 25 channel points. And this number here, we're going 89 out of 100. What does that mean? So this is something where we applied where it was communal, community-based. So some awards, you had to get multiple community members to redeem the reward in order to activate the reward, or the sabotage in this case. So for all of these, these had to be redeemed 100 times in order to do this. Now, sure, one person could have redeemed all 100 theoretically, but we were trying to, one, make sure that one person could do that, because we would just try to monitor the economy. Sometimes we did it really well, sometimes we didn't, to make sure that you had to rally the troops, okay, to do this. And so that's what happens. And of course, it's much easier to redeem something 100 times if you have 100 people redeeming versus having one person do it 100 times. So that's something we applied here. And what this really does is it really gets, again, your audience to work together and to talk to each other and to, again, lobby and rally and stuff like that. And that's really fascinating to see within a chat mechanism and a community online, where they're like, no, we got to do this together. We got to blah, 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 and redeem this. And whether they use, they call each other names or something like that, that's Twitch. But that's really one of the fun things of the method here, where we apply this to our show. So how the purchasing of the channel points work. In voting, here we go. So in voting, so how it works is you actually can buy more votes for with your channel points. And you may go like, this is a very slippery slope with democratic mechanisms, okay? And I will own that, right? So because in season 3 and season 2, you were able to buy votes, but you were able to use cash or Twitch currency to do this. So Twitch bits, whatever it is, okay? So you could inherently see a poll and go, oh, I want this to win. I'm going to drop $1,000 on this poll, and boom, swing 1,000 votes into this thing and swing the poll the other way. You could do that. I don't think anybody threw that much money down, but I'm just saying the example, you could do that. And so going into this season, we wanted to demonstrate something different. We wanted to demonstrate rewards of loyalty versus rewards of currency or money. So sure, it's like in the first version with buying votes with dollars or just fiat currency, you could just, some whale, some rich kid or whatever can just kind of troll the audience and just drop $1,000 and kill off a character theoretically, right? We wanted to make sure that the most powerful people in our show and our audience were the people who were watching the most. So channel points is something that you can only get by watching the channel that you're getting the points for. So if Bernie Sue is streaming on Twitch, Bernie Sue's channel points you get for watching me does not transfer to Artificial's channel points. You only get Artificial channel points by watching Artificial. So the only way to get power in the show as an audience member is to watch the show. We're rewarding loyalty, which leads to all sorts of blockchain Web3 stuff you can talk about in a second. Okay, but so this is how it works. You can redeem your channel points to buy 100 extra votes or 20 extra votes. The more you buy, the cheaper it is. And then you can deploy the channel points or bot votes here and buy, swing a poll 50, 100 votes each way based on what you buy. And this was really fascinating to us because we're not trying to demonstrate perfect democracy here. Not that, I don't know if any democracy is perfect, whole different conversation, but we're demonstrating giving power and rewarding the audience for watching the show, okay? So all of you who are listening to this, you're all a fan of something, you've given all this time and dedicated all this to that franchise, Harry Potter, Star Wars, whatever it is. Do you have any more power in the grand scape of the narrative than any other person in the world that's not working on the show? Most likely not, okay? Most likely not. And so this is something that we wanted to put forward to see what we could do to kind of shake up the system a little bit. Okay, so there's that. My slides are okay. So let's go to the finale here. Oop, here we go. So when we got to the finale of the show, we wanted to really push the envelope here of what we could do, merging virtual characters, live action, interactive storytelling all together. And so we pull off this heist plot here. The filmmaking part of it, it definitely kind of bleeds more into like a Twitch show rather than a really polished sci-fi series here, because we're fighting time. We produce the show every week, so it's pretty difficult in that regard. But that's okay. It's okay. So as I mentioned in the video, there actually were 16 different paths that this thing could go. So pretty fun. By 16, I mean it's compounded. So it's like 4 major choices compounded x2, whatever. Or is it 2? Yeah, something like that. It's not exactly that, because a couple of them have 3 choices and so forth. So, but there was a kind of a path that you can go on, and the path would have 15, 16 different outcomes and so forth. So it was really fun to see which one they would do. It did make for a lot of production of things that were never shown, which is kind of annoying as a storyteller, and that's something that you have to fight against when you're doing this as a filmmaker, because you're producing stuff that people may never see, and that's hard. So, but hey, that's the game. And then over here we had the final poll, and this is something where I talked about consequentiality, right? And so we at the beginning of the season said that by the end of the season, one faction will win and one faction will lose, and that faction will lose its AI, and that AI will be erased and evaporated, or whatever you want to call it, death, all stuff. So we did this where we designed this episode where that we knew that one of them were going to die. But we gave kind of 4 different outcomes of how to get to that point. So it made for a fascinating situation and narrative, because what we actually did is we actually had one of the teams win the heist. So one team won the heist, actually got the point of winning, which is the kind of the trigger of the other team loses, right? But we gave the opportunity for the audience to the faction of the team that won to give up and forfeit, because they had the emotions and love and empathy and friendship and so forth. Like if you imagine these characters were humans, which a lot of the audience were, and they were tied to them as avatars and so forth, they didn't want to see one of them die, and both the characters wanted the other character to live. So this kind of sacrifice mechanism came into play. So you see how close this vote was, right? On the left here, keep the aura so that Kai can live. 52-48, like 48% of the audience of your faction is actually telling you to forfeit. That's crazy. Okay. And then the other poll, they wanted to keep it. so that's what happened here. It's just, again, you could look at this as a study of audience nuances and how they're tied to certain things. But this is what we wanted to do for our audience, and give them a really tough choice, something to traumatize over, or think about. So in summary, artificial factions, scripted, serialized sci-fi series, live, audience interactive, consequential, and then the new mechanisms, virtual characters, faction system, economic system, all in play here. And so this, in my very biased opinion, is the most innovative television show in the world right now. But who knows what comes out next week? So just being respectful of that. And with that, I mean, I'm happy to open it up for questions, whether Krishna wants to jump in now or in a bit. But yeah, I mean, please. Oh,
thank you, Bernie. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, well, the Q&A is open on the hashtag and on the email address. And in the meantime, I have some questions, so maybe we could start with those, if that's okay.
Please, absolutely.
Cool. So yeah, it's really interesting. I was going to ask you, one of my questions was about Twitch as a platform, and you've gone into quite a lot of detail about that. So I'm wondering, like, what if you could have anything work, what would your additional functionality be for Twitch? Because obviously you're using quite a lot of it in quite a lot of detail. So I wonder, is there like a dream for the next steps?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to disclose stuff that I've asked Twitch for, but I will say that this show is designed to be unique to Twitch, not meaning that we're like, hoarding the technology. It's just that Twitch is the best platform to be able to be flexible to these things. So you go like, oh, you could do a live show on YouTube. You can do a live show on Facebook. Absolutely, you can, right? You can do all these things, but Twitch has has channel points, has extension systems, has a more open API where you can build stuff on top of it, like factionalized polls. Okay, I don't know if YouTube has polls yet. They didn't last year at the time for YouTube Live. YouTube Live works great. Doesn't have any of the mechanisms that I needed to do in order to do this show. So where we would apply this, it's just like you go like, okay, Twitch, what are you doing next? So which actually led us to the channel point. So I think one of the things that I don't know if this is actual fact or not, but people go, well, I'll say this one, I'll say this, give this context. So after every season of Artificial, I always think we're never coming back, and then we come back. So it's just hilarious to me that we've now 4 seasons in. So between season 3 and 4, I'm like, oh, we're never coming back. And then I came up with this concept, the concept of the faction system. And then I was like, well, I should apply some Twitch unique tech to this, just to kind of, grease the wheels a little bit here. And it's like, what are they playing with right now? And they were playing with channel points. And I was like, oh, I could use that. so that's what inspired the thinking of going, hey guys, I have this new show. It's way more innovative than the last show, which won the Emmy for innovation. And I'm going to add to it this mechanism that only you guys have, only your platform has to do this. And here we are, did another season. So I don't know if that's what pushed it over or not, but it is something where, those of you students where, it's a sales technique, right? It's like, it's not about your thing. It's about what the person you're selling to, what are they gaining by doing, saying yes to what you want to sell them. So I like to say this show could only be done in this format, in this method on Twitch. You could certainly take the story and port it to any live platform you want to. You could probably do it on Zoom if you wanted to. You just wouldn't be the same show.
Yeah, fantastic, cool. I will check. Let's see. I think there's some questions coming in. I have another question here. I see you, I could be completely wrong, but I see you as somebody who's very smart about the business of media, as well as being highly creative. And I wonder, say that money was no object and that, you were working outside of market forces. What would you want to make in that scenario if it was just purely the creative story that you could make right now?
Thank you for the compliment. Appreciate that. So that's a good question. I would probably do something specifically in the eco space. It's an issue I'm very passionate about. Now, my previous answer to this years ago, and I've said this, so I don't think it's a current answer because I think the landscape has changed. One of the shows or stories that really were really changed by how I look at storytelling was the story Battle Royale. The original Japanese version whether you say it's derivative off, Hunger Games is a very similar thing. Squid Games is a very similar thing, right? So Battle Royale, but I'll tell you why that one is still the OG coup de grace for me. And the reason for that is because that story, the book especially, but the movie does this relatively well, actually, considering it's only a 2-hour movie, does a really good job of making you empathize with everybody in all the deaths in that show. And Hunger Games, my personal opinion, does not do that very well at all. It only really focuses on Katniss and a small group around Katniss, right? And Squid Games does this a little better. I think Squid Games had a hard time because it has just so many people in the beginning, if you've seen the show. So what that basically became was like, could you do a narrative experience where you could follow all the stories? You could like go back and that lived as a transmedia parallel experience where you could see player 2 and player 5 and player 6, even though they only lasted in the game for like maybe 20 seconds, or maybe see what it was like the life was the day before and see what the life was up to the point. And Battle Royale, the original, does this really well, and the best I've seen it to date. Now, I'm not saying there are other things better, I just haven't seen them. Where it was, I want to say 40 kids in that school that all go and do Battle Royale Hunger Games, and you really feel for like all 40 of them. You're like, oh my God, like it's super tragic, where all 40 feels really tragic. Like some of the stories of the kids felt stronger than the main character story, which I thought was really amazing. So that really messed with my head as a storyteller. It was like, oh, this isn't hero's journey anymore. It's like there are other people matter. Like other people care. You care about other characters, which is what we applied to Lizzie Bennet Diaries, actually. That I think helped push that into a cultural series was that we actually applied this method, ironically, battle royale method, to Jane Austen, and I will qualify that statement by saying this, right? That you can say that our show Lizzie Bennet Diaries is worse or better than the other adaptations, right? And you can say that the other adaptations, Darcy and Lizzie, the main characters, okay, are better than our versions or not. I'm not saying ours aren't better. I'm not saying ours are worse, okay? But I will stand by that all of our supporting characters are way better than all the supporting characters in all the other adaptations. Our supporting characters in our show are much stronger than the supporting characters in all the other adaptations. And because we applied this method of really caring about the other characters in the show and giving them areas to kind of flow out and branch out, to where if you care about a Lydia Bennet, a Georgiana Darcy, these characters that just are there almost in the original to service the main plot, you could see what they're doing more than just the original story. And that's what made them really sing on that story. So that's where it came from. And then going back to your question about the application today, in eco, it's just like, that's the subject matter I would do. I don't know if I would apply this method to it or Artificial's method to it either. It's just the area I'm just really passionate about, which is, and specifically eco, it's, there's a lot of area in eco that people talk about, preservation, oil, energy. My area is actually that I care about is agriculture. So I would do something there. So not a perfect answer, but
really interesting. Thank you. I will check the Q&A in a minute, but before we get to that, I wanted to pick up on one of the questions when we sent out to you, like a few questions to get in the sort of flavor of who you are and what you do. I asked you about an influential story, and you said the Moneyball story, which I've never read the book. I've seen the film. I really liked his Flash Boys story, actually. I found that really, really interesting. I don't know if you read that book, but I wondered if you could talk to us about that, because you kind of responded as Moneyball being a kind of methodology, a mindset by which you kind of approach the creative process. And I was just interested if you could talk about that for us.
Sure. Okay, so let's set up Moneyball first off, and my interpretation of Moneyball. Okay, so Moneyball was a book, Michael Lewis, about the Oakland A's baseball team and how they, with a 1/3 of the budget of the New York Yankees, which is the biggest team in baseball, American baseball, was able to compete and essentially beat them in various areas or be at the same level of them. Okay, and if you go like, well, with 1/3 of the budget, like what the heck are they doing? And so when you read that book, if you're a baseball fan, I mean, I'm a baseball fan, so I think I take more out of it because I appreciate the nuances of baseball more. But for anybody else, I would say what they do really well in Moneyball philosophy is finding things that are undervalued and avoiding things that are overvalued. And that can be just be a little utilitarian about this. It could be people, it could be resources, it could be equipment, it could be all these sorts of things. So, so for a Lizzie Bennet Diaries, as an example, that show was produced for less than $500,000, way less than that actually. All right, and that's a 9.5-hour series for less than $500K. Okay, and when you watch the show, you can see that we didn't, there's not a bunch of cinematic money being spent. Okay, we didn't spend the money there. Of the very little we had, we didn't spend the money there. So for us, the Moneyball philosophy of Lizzie Bennet Diaries was like, we're gonna find people. We're not gonna spend all the money on a big star because that's not gonna give us a lot of value. It may give us some value, but it's not gonna give us a lot of value in this format, right? And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put all our resources into two areas. We're gonna focus it on acting, we're gonna focus on writing, and that's what separates that show. So to me, that's kind of the one area of Moneyball philosophy, right? The other area I would say is finding things that, at least in business or in storytelling or team building, it's finding people and areas that you can that one person can cover a lot of things or several things. So a question I get asked about Artificial is like, oh, what's your writing team like, right? Because it's live, it's 2 hours every week. It's like, how big is this team? And Artificial does not have a big budget either, right? And so the team I have to build, I'm almost forced to build it because I have my budget's so low. I feel like I'm Billy Bean in Moneyball. I feel like I have to go this route because I have or else the show would not get made. I have to find writers that can potentially cover every other areas. I'm not saying they have to be the greatest, editor or whatever in this place, but if they can cover every other areas, well, then I don't have to sure, I can compensate them for both areas, which is fine. Okay, which we do. Okay, but at the very least, though, too, I don't have to worry about having more personnel that kind of bloats the just like the roster, right? I have to, I got to talk to this person. I can talk to this person. I can talk to one person and cover writing, technical direction, like editing, post all together, or two people, and just kind of cover everything at once, right? So it's just efficiency, it's economics, it's speed, it's like all these abilities kind of blow into one. And when you're doing a show like an artificial that produces a 2-hour movie basically every week and has to write it, every week, you have to go fast. You do not have the luxury of waiting on people and vice versa, having them wait on you, right? You can't do that either. So you need nimble teams where singular people can make empowering decisions and not have to get approval from everybody. And thus for that, you kind of need to find these like jack of all trades, diamonds in the rough type people who are there. And so a lot of the artificial team members are people who are kind of known for a different trade that wanted to get into writing more or write more. Like, oh, I'm at this, but I really want to write more. Oh, cool. That's fine. I'm going to have you do both, if that's okay. Like, you're going to have to do the thing that you're known for, but also I guarantee you'll get writing opportunities with us as well. So that's the basics of that philosophy.
Cool. Excellent. Well, I've got some questions from the audience here. There's a few coming in. So if we just move through them in order.
Sure.
This is relating to artificial, I think. Is the narrative built around the interaction, or are there set interactions with which you mold the story around?
Both. All right. So artificial as a story, we do a lot of traditional storytelling here. So we'll do 4 acts, 3 acts, 3-act structure, 4-act structure, however you want to look at it. Our outlines are like that. And what we'll do is we'll build nodes. So the nodes are where the choices matter. Now you go like, but wait, how can you go from a choice node to a non-choice node because you don't know what the choice is? It's like, well, you built in variables here. So and you can talk about all complexities with it, but I actually found the simplest way to explain this, right? When you're writing a script or a book or a screenplay, you're thinking about, ideally, you're thinking about every word, every beat at every moment, right? It's like this happens and this happens. They say this and they say that and they say this and they say that. Okay, cool, no problem. Okay, that's how stories have been written for thousands of years, no problem. Before interactive technologies came apart. Okay, and now we have interactive technologies. And we're doing live episodes where stories are doing this, and we don't know what exactly is going to happen here. Or we have various variations of what can happen, and we're not sure what the audience is going to pick. Okay, so you go like, well, how do you craft that? That seems insane. And I go, well, here's the basic way to think about it. Think about your day, whether it's today, your next day. Your day has a plan, all right? Your day doesn't have every moment planned out, hopefully, or probably not. You'll know you're going to have breakfast at a time. You know you're going to have a lunch at a time. You can have dinner at a time. You know probably in advance, usually, who is going to be with you during those big points, whether it be meals or going home to the kids or whatever it is, okay? It's the in-between that has all these variables, right? You go to the office, you know you have a meeting, but you have like this 2-hour block between the meeting and the next meeting. That's a lot of variables that will determine how that day plays. You don't know if it's going to be a good day or a bad day. Okay, you hope it's a good day, but you don't. But you don't know how it's going to play out. So that's the very basic way I can explain how we look at artificial as a storytelling method, how we format it, how we design it, is what we look at like a day. We have big points that we know we want to hit, those big act breaks, right? Those dun dun duns and all that stuff. Okay, we know what those are going to be, and when we design around them to flow things into them. So in game design, string of pearls or a bead of pearls, I always get the term wrong. It's one of those. So it's it starts here. You branch off and you come back, and you branch off, and you come back. That's a very basic version of that. So we do that a lot in our shows.
Yeah, cool. Okay, another question. Good question. Is it painful as an artist for the audience to steer the show in an undesired direction?
It would be, but we don't let that happen. It's a good question. I'm sorry I'm laughing. It's a really good question, but it's the true answer, right? There's nothing that has ever happened on the show that we didn't allow to happen, right? That we didn't accept as an answer, as a thing. So, and you go like, wait, but why? It's like, but that's how characters work, you know? So if I said, hey, you get to pick, Krishna, you get to pick what I get to do today, right? And you go, all right, Bernie, I want you to go into the highway bridge and jump off it onto traffic. I, as a character, am gonna go, no, I am not gonna let me do that, right? I'm not gonna, that's against my moral code. Or you go, I want you to go to the convenience store and stab the first person you see. I'm gonna go, no, I'm not gonna do that, right? But if you said, I want you to go run 2 miles, right? I may go, you know what? Could use the exercise. It's a nice day out. It's a good idea. I'm gonna run 2 miles, right? And I'm gonna give you the credit that gave me the idea. That's the relationship you wanna have, okay, with that. So now obviously in a drama, you wanna create drama, okay, with that. So that's the thing that balances that method. Now, there are two kind of separations of this. So one is with character, right? So character meaning I'm giving you the character, I'm giving you the audience, whether through my choice or whether through tyrannical choice by someone else, by another character telling me to give you this choice, that I allow you to choose what I get to do right now. Okay. Now, when those choices are not blanket choice, like we don't go, hey, what should the character do right now, and let the audience spam 10,000 choices, and then one of them wins. What we'll do is the audience will spam 10,000 choices, and we'll vet 3 or 4, 2 to 4, 2 to 5, whatever it is, that we all accept that if any of these 4 hit, we will let that happen. We will let that happen. So it prevents us from getting things like, you know, characters named Bodie McBoatface. It kind of, you know, gates that a little bit. Now we make sure that we want them to be dramatic choices. We want the polls to always be very competitive. We don't like seeing 90-10 polls. We like seeing 51-49 polls. Those are far more interesting to us as storytellers. They're far more nerve-wracking, but they're far more interesting to us as storytellers. So there's that. The second thing that I would say is what we call we'll call it a God poll, right? So the God poll method, or audience is God, okay, is the characters are not aware that the audience is making choices for them. In artificial, they kind of are. They talk to the audience, they ask you have questions, so forth. Audience as God as a method is you and I as characters, Krishna, like we're at a restaurant and we hate each other. We hate each other. And we are ready to just go at it. Okay, we're just having a drink and so forth like that, and blah blah. And we're ready to go at it. Okay, and the audience has a power. It's like the waitress is going to bring something to our table, and the audience goes. The choices are a block of $10,000, a gun, right, or a pie. Okay, right. Now we as characters are not aware that the audience is making this choice, so we can't go F you audience for being the. But when that item, whatever the audience chooses, hits that table, something's going to happen, right? If it's $10,000, if it's a gun, if it's a pie, you have 3 completely different scenes that hit because of this choice. I love this stuff like that. When we do this, it's super fun. We have not done that specific example, but man, wouldn't that be fun? Like at a Sopranos or something like that. Just like, you know what? Just send them a gun. Like, let's see what happens. Let's see how this scene plays out. Right. Yeah. So that's the answer to that question. We are constantly curating what hits the board, as we call it in our show. Like what hits the board. Curation
as well as much. Yeah. So it's a negotiation and a curation of where it's going to go by different things, by character and by your sense of the stories and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
I mean, we are still the storytellers. We are still the showrunners. We're the directors. We're the writers. We are the ones who ultimately let things pass through. Okay. Yeah. We're just taking ideas from the audience, or taking or letting the audience, dictate some of these things. Sometimes we pre-choose, the idea, and sometimes we let the audience suggest ideas, and we choose from the audience what the audience has suggested.
Yeah, cool, great. I vote for the pie. The next question is,
would you throw it at me? Was that was going to happen? You're going to throw me
and I mentioned this a little bit because I saw that you were doing something, and I'm not sure exactly what, but there's a question come in about will cryptocurrency and NFTs play a role in interactive media? We've seen video publishers entertaining the idea. What are your thoughts? And if you're at liberty to say what you're working on, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So the short answer to that question is yes, 100%, absolutely. And I'll give you the self-serving bias reason why. But to tell you what I'm doing to kind of frame it. So I am now I've kind of moved over to, I guess, Web3 storytelling, right? What that is. So I joined this group called Meta Theory. It's with a bunch of the old Twitch guys, and we've released an NFT, and we are a Web3 studio, game studio, and content team. So what that means is that our first NFT is this thing called Dustbreakers. If you want to check it out, cool. You don't have to buy it. You can just check it out, see what we're doing, follow us. There are things we're doing pretty good. There are things we're not doing pretty good, just to be fair, okay? That we're trying to make better, and that's the name of the game. The NFT is, again, called Dustbreakers. The first franchise we're doing is called Dustbreakers, and the story is, at the basic level, it's a giant ship has come up and in synchronous orbit with above Africa, and humanity is starting to mine the ship. The ship is called the Dusk. We are breaking the dusk and mining it down. So a little bit of District 9 elements, if you want to say visually what it looks like. The ship is much bigger than the District 9 ship, but that's the idea of it. And it's a story franchise where the 10,000 NFTs are the 10,000 breakers. And essentially, you as a holder have a character in the world of the 10,000, okay? And we're building different things. We're building an animated series. We're building a video game. We've released a couple mini games that are part of the franchise. And it's franchise building through Web3. That's the way I look at it. I look at it as franchise building using Web3 technology. And you go, what is Web3 technology? And what do you mean by that? I just want to tell a story and call it a day. Totally respect that. No problem. Right. And so to go into that question about how it applies in storytelling. Well, the reason why it's going to be so impactful is because there's so much money coming in. Like, it has to. There's money going in, there's money going out, right? And I say this to all due respect to both my work as a streaming storyteller and the panel before me with VR, right? I cannot say that about either of those formats, right? That there's so much money going in and out of it, coming in and going out, right? And by going out, I mean money coming in and regular people, players, making money from it. Not everybody. This is not investment advice, and do your own research, but there are people who are killing it, right? And one of them is not me. So just to be fair, okay. So if there's so much resources coming in and money coming in, it has to become something. It has to become something. Now, why I say, we go like, wait, all this money that was dumped in the VR. Sure. Yes. There was a lot of money dumped in the VR, but there was not a lot of money being made from VR. No one's making a ton of money. Well, some people are. But there's not a mass like gold rush of people making a crap ton of money with VR elements in story yet. Okay. And I've been following it for years, right? Google made this company, I'm forgetting what it's called, it's gone now, right? A couple years ago, I was in office in Santa Monica, they were spending $70 million on VR, and they don't exist anymore. Okay. So that is there for sure, right? And so when I look at that, I go, this has to be this has to be the thing, okay? And you go, well, but isn't it icky for the viewer and the gamer and so forth? It can be, absolutely. A lot of these are scams, wild west, absolutely. I'm in one, and I'm very, very transparent that I'm in one, and I'll be very I'm putting my whole career reputation on this, man. So it's like I'm if I'm scamming, but like you see who I am, you see my history, my whole career is on this play, but I look at it as, you have things like, you may have heard play to earn. Okay. Play to earn. Yeah. I'm assuming, I don't know if you guys have studied that or brought that up in the conference. Play to earn is this crazy concept of the more you play the video game, the more money you earn. You're like, wait, what? You mean all the hours I've used to spend playing StarCraft for basically fun and nothing and waste of time, I could be making something on that? Yeah, you can if the system is built right. Isn't that transcendent? Isn't that like mind-blowing as a concept? Conceptually, right? Then you go, what can be translated to television? Theoretically, yeah. Watch to earn. The more you watch Squid Game or Grey's Anatomy, you actually earn something from it, and you can trade that asset. That's fascinating. Okay, so you have these abilities where, I mean, we kind of basically did watch to earn, right? We basically did we did the well, not to earn, but we watched the influence, which was the channel point system that we just did artificial, right? The more you watched, the more powerful you were in that. That system would be built way more transcendent or more like powerful as a crypto experience, because it's transparent. It's transparent how much currency is out there, right? Like, and people do this to have discussion about like, wait, how do you trust crypto or blah blah blah, and how do you versus something? And it's like, well, you either do, you don't. One, crypto is transparent. You can just look up how many Bitcoins actually exist in the Bitcoin universe. Like it's there. I don't know what it is, but you can. And I'm not sure if this is possible. I don't know how much. I don't know if you can look up how many dollars exist, in the U.S. current economy. How many pounds exist in the UK economy? I don't know if that's transparent out there. So I'm not saying one or the other. I'm just meeting you halfway as part of the discussion. So if you go, how much power is there out there? How is it distributed? Can I gain more of it? Can I gain not? Suddenly you can build really, really grand systems with this. So you can take any kind of experience, whether it be a watching experience or a gaming experience, and then transform that in using Web3 tech. And by Web3 tech, I will say it's about trust, meaning that what's out there. That there are only 10,000 Dustbreakers out there. There are only 10,000 Bored Ape Yacht Clubs out there, okay? You do not know in a land-based game, like a Clash of Clans, for example, if you played that game, I can go make my island. Cool. How many islands are there out there? I don't know. Can I sell my island? Does it have currency? No, because I don't know how much land is out there. We know how much land is out on our planet because it's been mapped. We know that, and so we know the scarcity of that. So that's what essentially the transcendence of Web3 is in many, many facets. The second thing, of course, being the whole royalty systems that you do. Those of you who don't know what that is, it's when every time you buy a Dustbreaker with someone else, like you're not part of the team, you have one, you sell it to someone else, we'll get a royalty on that automatically into our system. And you go, wait, what? Well, all the NFTs do this. Bored Ape does this, so it's not just anybody, or not just us that does it. But you go, but that services the artists. That's the point. When you buy a Van Gogh, the Van Gogh estate doesn't get a portion of the $20 million you just spent. It's only going to the curator, Sotheby's, right? A percentage goes here, So it locks all the art into this system where now the artist can get paid in a very, very transparent way. Now you got to make sure it's built correctly, of course, but that's the transformativeness of this too, which is where the artist suddenly, if you're a really good artist and you're really smart and you have a good tech team around you, you can make a lot of money really fast in this. And I've seen it, and it's crazy. And I'm still learning myself. So not an expert, just telling what I've seen.
Interesting. I mean, I haven't followed it. I mean, I'm following it, but I haven't really seen how it can be applied. But I mean, what's interesting about what you're saying is that it's an opportunity, and there is an element that there is trust, possibly more trust than in kind of the existing kind of monetary systems. And in terms of kind of interactive and kind of new media storytelling, it's always been in a way looking for new business models. So perhaps this might be one. I don't know. Really,
I mean, it's still early. I think if you want to see the kind of crown jewel of play to earn, it's Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity basically is this element where we'll just say Pokemon, for the example. You have a team of Pokemon, and you can train your Pokemon, and you can evolve your Pokemon, and they get better and whatever, and they're better at certain things and so forth, and you fight them against each other and so forth, and when you win currency within the Pokemon universe, you can sell that currency, and you can sell the Pokemon. You could sell your Pokemon and buy other Pokemon. You can't do this in Pokemon Go. All the hours that kids have spent collecting, walking around, flipping their Pokeballs out, you don't get to sell your Pokemon to other people. Even though you probably want to, you probably want to trade, you probably want to do these things. You don't get to do that in that in that ecosystem. You get to do it in Axie Infinity. And I don't know if this is still the case, because I know we had a big drop in crypto in the last couple of weeks, but there was at least last year with Axie Infinity. Again, my rudimentary knowledge of this is like there are people in Southeast Asia who don't make more than $200 a week or a month or so forth, making way more money than that playing Axie Infinity than they are like working their physical job. So it's really helped get a lot of people out of poverty in those regions. It's really helped people, traverse the pandemic because they were locked down, so they could just play. It's just fascinating to see how that applies. And look, you may not like it for because for whatever reasons, it's just like you don't know and all that stuff. Total respect that. Take your time, do your research. Right? It's risky. If you're going to use it as an investment play, it's risky. If you're looking at it as a creative play, I think you got to do some research, because there's a lot of resources being pulled in, both from traditional and VC and investment and all this stuff coming into this thing. And I think you just have to look at it. You have to, as a creator, especially unless you're just hyper focused, like I want to be a screenwriter, like fine, like yeah, cool. But if you're looking at it as an artist, I think you gotta open your eyes on this one.
Good point.
Keep your eyes out.
Cool. Okay. I have another question, and it's: were there any concerns? I guess this is relating to artificial, possibly other of your projects as well. But were there any concerns about audience toxicity when explicitly pitching audience groups against each other? Were there any measures to prevent a negative environment from forming?
Yeah, absolutely. Twitch has a relatively good system where you can ban out people, ban out accounts for being toxic, as you mentioned. And we're transparent about this. Most really well-run Twitch channels do this. You come in, you start swearing, you start being abusive, you start being blah, 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 verbally, whatever, you're banned. Get out of here. Like, go watch something else, right? So it's actually pretty simple as an application now. Twitch as a platform, yes, absolutely, it can get toxic. Sure, no, yeah, I agree. But when you have mods and you have multiple people modding and watching out for the stuff and banning people and kicking them out, like, some things happen and then they get kicked out pretty quickly, and then you're okay. So, yeah. It's a concern. Absolutely, it's a concern. And I will say, it's like, the allegories or the kind of the theming of connecting to our modern society of having a polarized society. It was a thought, a concern. There was a concern about that. It was like, hey, you're putting people against each other and so forth. Is that just making things more divisive? It's like, well, we're not a political show for one, so I'm not too worried about that. We are a sci-fi basically game, right? Like gaming experience. So there's that. And we were trying to be very respectful about it. We wanted to be more like Harry Potter than the US political system. So and then we want people to have fun. So I feel like we did all right, but you can watch and give your own opinion.
Cool. One more question here. Don't quite understand the question. Let me try. Did you have any surprises with the targeted audience and the audience that was actually impacted?
Interesting question.
It's not quite easy to understand, but I mean, I guess, were there any kind of big surprises or things that you didn't anticipate, and maybe the audience didn't anticipate these things to happen in artificial?
I'm thinking. Well, I'll give you an example of this. This is probably one of our stuntiest moments. It's in season 3. So we had a character go on trial, and the episode was a trial format where arguments and blah blah and rebuttal, and the jury was the audience. So the last vote was guilty or innocent by the audience, and the consequences was that character was gone from the show, like would be eliminated from the show and guilty if he was voted for guilty, right? And so essentially it's like you're giving the audience the power to kill off a character practically, like just get it out of here. And the fascinating thing going into that one was, first you think about it from the writer's perspective, it's like, oh my god, I'm giving this power to the audience, it's like, is this bad or whatever? And then you go, no, I mean, this is a show, this is the spirit of the show that we do, where we give them this power. Then the second thing comes up, it's like, well, you're putting the fate of this actor's career, sort of, some money, okay, we're not that big a show, be to the audience. And so I'm like, but Game of Thrones kills people all the time. Like they like murder people, like they're in for an episode and they're gone, like they're just like, annihilated. So then I didn't worry about that. So going to that episode, there was the fun thing, the anticipation of that vote was, we as a team, we all had, like, what's going to happen, okay, all right. And you also have to remember that there's the buying vote system in here. So if it was a public vote, you go and everybody got one vote, what's going to happen? And if and the whales, as we call them, the people who are coming in buying votes, what are they going to do? How are they going to swing it? Right. And so different people had different opinions. So my co-creator in the show, Evan, he was like, the audience is going to vote him guilty. He's dead. He's gone. Like, oh my god, this is crazy. like this, that's what's going to happen. And then I think I remember saying, I want to say that I thought the regular audience would vote him guilty, but the whales would save him. That's what I thought would happen. And I was wrong on both accounts. Oh no, I was wrong. The audience, both the audience and the whales saved him. Like they both voted for innocent, which I thought was really fascinating. And you think about that from a perspective of Twitch trolling craziness versus just like loyal audience, right? If you're just coming into a show blind, you're like, yeah, drama, hang the guy, right? Like whatever, like all that stuff. You were part of the angry mob going into a show blind, because you have no context, you have no empathy to the character, you haven't been with them for 3 seasons and so forth. And so I was pretty sure the kind of random Twitch audience, which you do have a lot of, was going to come in and vote him guilty, and boom, the audience. But then the whales would come in and save him, because I figured the whales would save him. And what I was wrong about was that I was looking at the data afterward. There were whales voting him guilty. They're like, this guy's gone. There are whales dumping in the other side. So it was still close. And what was hilarious in the chat was that the whales knew that they were starting to swing the vote one way, but they also saw it being countered, and they knew there was a whale swinging the other way. They just didn't know who they were, right? Like, oh my god, they're fighting against us, we have to keep putting in more. It was hysterical. It was so funny to me, and I was wrong about that. I thought my prediction was wrong, and I'm happy to own that. But that's what I love about it. It's like I love the kind of having a really good sense, thinking I have a good sense of what's going to happen, and then being really pleasantly surprised by the audience. My experience is that if you think the audience are going to do something, they're going to go run the other way completely. That's absolutely. And it's confounding, and then you just go, okay, that's the thing, and it's freeing, I think, as well. Yeah, sure. And there have been dozens of times, well, I don't know about dozens, but several times in the show where, we have favored a certain choice. Like we as the writers, like, oh, I really hope this happens, right? And like, oh yeah, like the voting guilty innocent one. Like that was the writer who wrote the 2 branches on that for the final. It's like she wrote a really beautiful ending speech that she's still very proud of, and I'm very proud of her for writing that speech. That speech is not canon. It'll never be seen. Like, and I think she's still salty about that. He's like, hey, should have been guilty. My speech was great. And we've got one last question from the audience here. What inspired the creation of the interactive series Artificial? Was it to fill a void in entertainment that you saw? Was it fulfilling something that a gap in some way? This is not as creative, we'll say. So let me kind of backtrack this. So different artists and creators kind of generate their ideas and their concepts from different ways, right? So I love these people, but I'm not this person, right? So I like Sundance's basically what just happened, and there's what I reference as the Sundance filmmaker. Okay, the Sundance filmmaker to me is someone who is a filmmaker and storyteller who like woke up one night, beat in a pool of sweat, had a brilliant idea and has to tell that story and spends the next 10 years telling that one story because that's all they can do in their head. Okay, and I'm going to tell this film, and they get that film told and it goes to Sundance, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I could never do that. Like, that's just not the way I operate. I don't have like lightning strikes of ideas and go, this is the movie I want to tell, and I'm gonna, my whole career is gonna be on this, and blah blah blah. Right. So the way I operate more is I am a very reactive storyteller, and I react to inspiration of things, and whether it be faith or whatever, it's like things will happen, and I'll go, oh yeah, we can do that. So Lizzie Bennet Diaries, using that example, I did not come up with Lizzie Bennet Diaries. Hank Green did. Okay, Hank Green, my co-creator on that show, did, and he's a YouTuber still is a YouTuber, and at the moment in time he was like, he theorized, hey, could we tell a book on YouTube? And I never thought of that before, and we met through serendipitous events, and it just triggered my mind. I'm like, oh, you absolutely could. You could. It would be nuts and crazy. Like, yeah, that sounds like an amazing idea. Not a Jane Austen super fan. Still not a Jane Austen super fan. Really respect the work, honor her and everything. She's, but I to the Jane Austen fans that are watching, the books I have not adapted, you probably know them better than I do at this moment. So the books I have adapted, I could probably go toe to toe with you on that one, but the other ones I don't. I just don't have the knowledge, right? So, and so I was inspired by that. So going to artificial, right? So at that point in my career, I had done Lizzie Bennet Diaries, Emma Approved. I had won 2 Emmys for YouTube shows, and I wasn't saying I was done with YouTube. I was just kind of like, what else is going on, right? And at that point, I also pivoted to traditional for a while. So I'd sold 2 TV shows to networks, which is a whole nother thing. It may sound really cool to sell TV shows to networks, and it is cool in some aspects, but as an artist, to work years and months on something to basically never get it seen, though you're paid for that, to never get them seen, I don't know if I consider that a win. I don't know. Okay. Just, you call it, right? I'm sure a lot of people watching this will be like, yeah, I'm going to sell my TV show. I'm going to get paid for it. But the idea of where you spend years on something, multiple things, and never get them seen after having grinded and gotten things seen with the other shows, it just apples and oranges, different, grass is greener. Okay. So coming off of that, I went, all right, I got to get back into this innovation game. Like, this is where I love doing interactive storytelling. TV shows are interactive. I want to do something different here. And I decided that I wanted to, I was looking at other platforms. It's like YouTube is YouTube. And at that point, Twitch had been acquired by Amazon. And I saw the platform as this really potentially transcendent area with new tech, the extension systems, polling systems and everything. Like, wow, this is super fascinating. And I was like, why can't we tell a story on Twitch? Why can't we do a television show on Twitch? Like, but then what makes a television show on Twitch? You can't just like put a show up, and call it a Twitch show. Like, Amazon owns Twitch. Amazon does that just fine. They don't need Twitch for that, So what makes it unique to Twitch? And so that's what inspired Artificial. Artificial was inspired by Twitch, the platform, and going, what kind of story can we tell here that would make it really, really fascinating, interesting? And and then that's the way I operate. So
cool. Excellent. Well, that is all the questions I have and the audience sent in, and thank you so much. It was really, really, really interesting. I had a blast.
Thank you for having me, by the way. This was really fun.
Yeah, it was good. I don't know if you caught any of the other panels. It's been a really nice day, and lots of interesting stuff and lots of interesting people. It's been great.
Unfortunately, I haven't, because I just woke up to do this panel.
Of course, yeah. I'll send you.
But I did catch the end of that VR panel, and always a fascinating space. Again, non-expert in VR, and deep respect for it. It's something I just not an expert in, but I'm aware it's out there, and the tech adoption there. still a thing, I guess. Right? That's what they
Yeah,
said.
whole other thing. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap things up with saying thanks to people and all of that. I mean, have you got any final thoughts for us?
Yeah, sure. So like, wait, so I mean, the people who watch a conference like this, it's like you're gonna have the people who are traditional storytellers who just are trying to dabble, right? And if you're a screenwriter, if you're a fiction writer or novelist, so forth, and that's what you want to do, great, no problem, no judgment on you. Go kill it. A lot of my friends are out there doing it. They're awesome. Go rock it. Like that's no problem. You don't have to do the things that I do, especially, right? Like you don't have to. But just someone like me, I like being on the cutting edge of things. And right now, I really do believe in the Web3 tech of things. And I really do think the technological advancement of the blockchain tech does transcend a lot of what we're doing. Just so many areas where it doesn't sound sexy, but like the innovation of trust is transcendent, right? If you really think about the innovation of trust, that is transcendent and transformative, right? And the idea of like, for example, when you were writing something and you sign a deal with a producer, okay, you see their contract, but you don't get to see the contract that they signed with the network, and you don't get to see the contract that the network signed with the studio, and you don't get to see the contract that the network and studio signed with the distributors. Okay, you don't get to see all that stuff, right? And I'm not saying that you get to see all that stuff here with Web3, but you theoretically could. so that is crazy to me. That's like, oh, okay, like that really innovates and disrupts lawyers and stuff. I mean, you still need lawyers to write the contracts on the Web3 stuff, so it doesn't eliminate lawyers. But I feel that that's an area where that's really interesting. Another area that I would highly recommend people look at is AI. And people go, oh, it's about blah, blah. You did a show about AI. I did a show about AI. That was the subject matter. I'm not separate that. Okay. I think AI and creative technologies is also very transformative, right? So this is, let's talk about, let's say we wanted to do a short film, right? How much of the short film applications of short film could be outsourced to AI? Okay. And you're like, wait, what? Okay. And we go, well, you can do writing, right? I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it's being built. You've had short films that were written by AIs and bots and so forth that were done. I'm not saying they're good. I'm not saying they're not. They're there. Okay. I've seen some tech out there that does predictive writing, right? We've seen predictive writing on Google, and so you're seeing that be out there, right? Number two, let's talk about production. Okay. So let's talk about a narrative podcast. Okay. We now have the technology out there getting better where voices can be synthesized, hopefully with proper deal making and royalties and so forth, where they can synthesize my voice and have it say whatever a writer wants it to say with whatever inflection, pacing, crying, laughing, smiling, all those things generated by AI. Crazy. Okay. Just crazy stuff. Okay. So you and I could do a narrative podcast and hire no actors and no writers and just do it theoretically. Will it be really smooth and good at this moment? Probably not. It'll probably sound very, very artificial, but that is an area that we're moving to. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's happening. Be aware of it. I think it'll serve you better. And you seeing AIs build like, CGI crowd work is AI built now. They're not hiring 10,000 extras. All sorts of filmmaking is using AI to speed things up and make things more efficient. I don't understand all of it. I just know it's happening. And my encouragement to all of you who are creators and artists looking at this is just open your mind of what's out there. And it's just going to get crazier and crazier. And those of us who are trying to fight and make sure that we're not exploited as humans, we're still getting compensated for our work. You can't just say no to them things. You have to, it's like the crazy analogy, it's like the drug trade. It's like marijuana, right? If you just say no to marijuana, everything becomes illegal and then everything goes on underground. You can't control it. You have to bring it in and be aware of it. And then you can regulate it and work with the system and benefit from the system of it, whether you like it or not. it's coming. I hope that we, as artists, can find a way to work together with this new tech that's coming out here, because we're artists. You know, we have to do what we can to protect ourselves.
Yeah, well, I would like to, they're really good points, and you know, you are showing a pretty good way forwards, and it's creative, and you know, you're looking after your team and making good work. So you know, full marks and beyond for you, Bernie. Thank you very much for your thoughts and for your time today. It's been excellent.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, everybody. If you have any questions, you can follow me on Twitter, Bernie Sue. I used to not tweet very much, but now with all this Web3 stuff, I'm there all the time. So send me a message.